Okay.
Okay. This, God, all right. I hate it. I get all rattled when things are recorded. So I'd like to welcome all of you to NAMI Tri-Valley's general meeting. This is our August or nearly every month presentations that we give to the public. Of course, everything that we do is free. So I'm Marsha McInnes, and I'm second vice president and speaker coordinator for another couple of months, and then I will be done with that chore. I mean that task. That sounds better. Okay, Rosemary's laughing. So with that, tonight our guest speaker is Lynn Gardner from Horizons Family Counseling, which is a division Livermore Police Department. But before we begin on that, I just want to bring a couple of things to your attention and hope that I'm not spamming everyone too harshly, but we do have our actually haven't had one for 2 years, so we're very pleased to be able to at least provide this by Zoom, and that's a suicide prevention workshop for family caregivers. And if anyone is interested and would like to participate in that or attend it, rather, that's a Saturday, August 7th. It's an all day. We used to keep it only for family caregivers, but we have opened it up to a lot of agencies that want to sit in and kind of know a little bit more what families go through. And but primarily we'll be focused on teaching families how to notice signs, not during crisis, but further out, if it's earlier in the stages of someone having suicide ideology. And also, but we do cover what do I do, what do I say. I'm very excited that Lynn is going to be one of our speakers on Saturday, so I can't thank you enough for being a good sport and coming in tonight, and then turn right around again and do another presentation on Saturday. I'm going to put up the flyer, and I'm going to put up the agenda for that event. And then I'm going to ask Rosemary or Joyce or Lois if you have anything to add that's NAMI Tri-Valley unique that you feel the public would like. Yeah, Rosemary.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in terms of the suicide prevention workshop, it is advertised currently on the Patch and also on the Independent online. That one took a lot of hassles over the last week, but finally it's up there under their local events schedule, and also has the flyer and everything else, as does the Patch. So you could, read more about it on either of those sources as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
And with that, we anything else, Joyce? How about family to family? Do we are we? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, I'm in communication with Lois, and we're kind of working out a schedule because Lois has some busy times and so do I. So hopefully we will get something started for September. I need to have a month in advance, but I want to connect with her. And also I see Barbie there too. Barbie, we may ask you to be a presenter as well. Okay. So that's as far as we have gotten so far.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I think we'll get started. And Lynn, please have at it here, and welcome to you. It's good to see you. Oh, you're muted. Lynn,
Can you hear me now?
sure can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. It's a pleasure always to be with you guys, including the monthlies and the annual conference. So I'm excited, and I've got two different topics to talk to you guys about tonight. And how much time do I have, Marcia?
Well, we wrap it up about 8:30.
Okay, I won't go to 8:30, but if someone could give me a heads up at about 8:10 or so.
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll let you know.
All right, fantastic. So what we're going to talk about today is trauma and its impact on children and teens. And it's a very interesting topic. Since the pandemic, I have been taking classes and actually even training some of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District staff, along with a co-facilitator and I, on the topic of trauma. And so when Marcia asked if I could cover this topic as well as the social media one, I was happy to do so. So let me see if I can share my screen. God help us. I think we're almost there. Could it possibly be? Come on. It is possible from the beginning. Oh, okay. I think we're rocking and rolling. Okay. So audio quality. If I have a problem with the audio, let me know, but I think we'll just rock on, as we say. So as Marcia mentioned, I am with Horizons. Have been here for almost 15 years, excited about the upcoming year, and excited to bring this topic to you guys, because I think part of the challenge that people have is that it's sometimes difficult to understand how people behave and why they behave the way they do and that sort of stuff. And understanding trauma and something that is called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, is one of those things that kind of gives you the aha moments to say, oh, that's why they act that way. And if we had done this, or I can still help in this regard with this child or this adult child, it's a great way of looking at things. So we're going to look at adverse childhood experiences, and this is going to be the first video clip that we are going to run. And I think you'll learn some things, and then we're going to talk. I'd like this to be interactive, so if during the clip something stirs in you, please type in the chat that, oh, that was pretty interesting. So I know I have to stop sharing so you can see the video that Lois will play, I believe.
Often here, children are our hope for a better future. What if you heard instead, we're making a better future for all children possible? You will. Across people, relationships, and communities, we're creating
Actually,
a new
Lois, I'm sorry.
generation.
This
generation.
If you could, you see the one that says we can prevent ACEs?
I thought that's the one I had. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. If you'll just play that one, that's fine.
Got it.
Great.
Hi, this is my neighborhood. I grew up in this building. This is a great community now, but it's had its share of problems. When I was a kid, our community had high unemployment, a lack of resources for families, and lots of kids hanging out with no adult supervision. You might have heard about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. ACEs are traumatic events in childhood, like abuse and neglect, that can increase risk for future problems. But they don't have to. The good news is that ACEs and their consequences can be prevented. Take me, for example. I was at risk for ACEs, and despite all the things that put me at risk, some pretty incredible people helped make sure that I wouldn't become another statistic. Come on, I'll show you around. That's Jackson. He's a cool kid. His dad left when he was 2, and his mom works 2 jobs. I hang out with him every Thursday night and help him with his homework. Sometimes we grab ice cream. It's fun. Plus, he has another adult role model to learn from and trust. That's Mr. Martino. When I was a kid, he let me help him at the store sometimes after school when my parents were working late. He did that for a bunch of us. My dad actually found his job as a mechanic because of Mr. Martino. This helped our family in so many ways. Not only did my dad have a steady paycheck, which eased his stress about paying rent and buying necessities like food and clothes, but he was also a lot nicer to me, my brother, and my mom once he started working a job that made him feel good about himself. When communities come together, they can do so much to prevent ACEs. Mr. Martino and other local business owners put together a series of career workshops to help people like my dad find work. My mom also got a job with a company that allowed her to work from home and spend more time with me and my brother. Mariana has just gotten out of a class about handling challenges of single parenting. The clinic offers free childcare so Mariana's daughter, Ella, can play while Mariana's in class. The class helps parents like Mariana develop positive parenting skills, not just for babies and toddlers, but for teenagers too. This is another way our community has come together to give families the resources they need, and just one more way to prevent ACEs. This was my school, Riverside Middle, right in the heart of town. These kids are here for a sponsored summer camp. This community-supported program helps families with affordable, quality childcare and helps kids get tutoring and learn life skills. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time at this school all year long. There was one counselor, Miss Greer, who I remember more than anyone. She was a really good listener. Miss Greer helped me and my brother get involved in after-school activities like baseball and soccer. Our coaches were super nice and were mentors to us. Staying after school for practice kept us and a lot of other kids out of trouble. When schools help take responsibility for preventing ACEs, everybody wins. My life could have gone in a completely different direction. Studies show that ACEs can have long-term negative effects on kids' health and well-being that may last into adulthood and even continue in future generations. But by people and groups taking action, ACEs can be prevented. In fact, there are 5 known strategies that help stop ACEs before they even start. You can implement them in your own community, just like we did. How? By strengthening economic support for families, by changing social norms to support parents in positive parenting, by providing quality care and education early in life, by enhancing parenting skills to promote healthy child development, and by intervening to lessen harms and prevent future risk. So, now you know my story, and you've seen the prevention strategies in my community that helped me beat the odds. I had healthy relationships with my family and friends. I learned how to take care of myself and make good choices. And today, I'm a mentor to other kids who need some extra help so they don't become an ACEs statistic. Safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments are essential to prevent child abuse and neglect and to assure that all kids reach their full potential. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Banana split? You got it.
I love that clip because it shows so much of how it's not simple, but it is something that we can do to make a change in the lives of the people that we love and care about and in our community. And that's what makes it so powerful. Actually, it's been known that if you have 4 or more ACEs, you are going to potentially, I guess it's not going to work. Let's see next. If you have 4 or more ACEs, you can potentially impact mental health for that individual, especially the idea of using substances and other things to try to dull the pain that they have not dealt with, or physical health, was one that I didn't realize was impacted so much by what happens to us beforehand, before we really have control. So our physical health can, the fact that we're exposed to ACEs can impact our physical health and have chronic conditions like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, all those sorts of things can be impacted. And then even more so, learning outcomes. If we have too many of those, you're almost 2.5 times more likely to fail a grade in school and have lower scores on standardized achievement tests. And the worst thing of all is that those kids are sort of put into the special ed track. They're not even considered for the potential that they may have if someone intervenes and says, oh no, wait a second, why is this kid acting this way? What do we know about their family life to make sure that we can intervene and try to help? So ACEs is important to understand and know because it does make a difference for all of us. It was interesting in the video, if you guys could put in the chat, how many of you had a mentor or a special person in your life that actually did make a difference for you, so you didn't go off the rails? Or I know I did. I had some teachers that were awesome, and they basically helped me to realize that what my potential was, and to actually I was raised by a single mom, and so when she was busy working, I had the ability to go to their classrooms after school. I was one of those latchkey kids, but fortunately I lived around the corner from the school, so it wasn't that bad. But so just, let's see, has anybody put in the chat? Fourth grade teacher, grandmother, absolutely. Anyone who takes the time to make a difference in the life of a child, even as much as just to say, hi, I see you. You have a special gift, to identify that and let that kid realize that they're not alone. Okay, so ACEs is it, in my opinion. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about foundations of trauma. Now, this is partially from the Center of Healthy Schools and Communities. I've taken some slides from the presentation that we do for the staff to just kind of give you an idea of what some of that is. So trauma awareness is very important. It's not just it's not just important for educators and therapists and that sort of stuff. It's important for everybody in the community to understand how this all works and what it means. So we're going to talk a little bit about the definitions. So the first definition of trauma is that it's a experience in which the condition is that there's a perceived threat to life, bodily injury, and dignity. That's one that people don't think about. If you get talked about, if someone is emotionally abusing you, that is a threat to your dignity. And the fact that the person cannot cope, they're overwhelmed with the feelings that come up as a result of that, that is trauma. Now, again, if you could put into the chat, if you've had any kind of traumatic experience. I know we've all suffered trauma in this last 18 months in terms of COVID. No question, we have had things that have been beyond our control that we could not necessarily deal with, and it takes a lot of coping skills, some of which we obviously have because we're still here, but some of which need to be assisted by a professional therapist or psychologist. Let's see, I'm trying to. And the thing that they wanted to make sure that people understood is that the traumatic events are extraordinary, not because they occur rarely, but because of the overwhelming feelings that occur in the person's ability to adapt to life. And that's like, you'll see that people actually, what they call disassociate. So there's different types of trauma. There's complex trauma, which basically is, a lot of different things happening at once. It's almost like a spider's web. You can't seem to find a beginning or the end, and it keeps piling up on each other. There's historical trauma from cumulative emotional and psychological wounds that happen to people or to communities of color, etc. There's intergenerational trauma. So let's just say there's a family that has had a series of traumatic experiences, and because no one has dealt with that and they keep pushing it under the rug, it becomes an intergenerational trauma that, again, the poor kid who's brought into that situation doesn't quite understand, and the parents or possibly the grandparents are still affected, and they don't understand how they've been affected either. So there's that intergenerational. We all know about national disasters. I mean, the fires and the devastation in the hurricanes and the tornadoes that have hit the country. We've got all kinds of wars going on and people trying to get into our country or leave their country. And those are traumas. And vicarious trauma is when you work with people who talk about trauma a lot, it becomes sort of vicarious that you weren't in it, but it still impacts you and you can still be traumatized. So those are the different types of trauma, and really understanding which is important in terms of figuring out how to deal with it. Okay, so I'm just going to show some pictures because to me, pictures are worth 1,000 words. We've had a whole bunch of things that have happened. The top picture is, you remember a year or so ago when we had the orange skies because we had the fires and we were wearing masks, but we were wearing masks because of the fires as opposed to now wearing masks because of COVID. Of course, all the equity and justice and seeing some of the police actions have been traumatic and stressful to the body. And then just sheltering in place. My gosh, that's been a big deal for all of us. So if you look at trauma, it's on a continuum. We all have stress. We all have things that happen to us that we can't control, and that's okay. But what happens is that our bodies basically build up and our minds start to think that we're in stress longer than we have to be. And that's called toxic stress. So it basically, our brain has the amygdala, which is this little, almost like an almond-shaped thing that basically says, I'm going to scan the horizon for anything that might be damaging to you. I don't want you to be hurt. So my job is to protect you. And what I'm going to do in order to protect you is I'm scanning for danger. And unfortunately, our amygdalas lose perspective because they're on one focus, danger, danger, danger. They don't look at what kind of danger is it. They don't look at, was it, I failed a test, so I'm a little stressed out. They look at, oh, your hormones have, and cortisol and dopamine have increased, so you're in danger, and I'm just going to flood your brain so that you try to get out of that danger. So exposure to trauma puts us all in a state of what is called the fight or flight process. And so our brain says you're in danger. And so as a result of it saying we're in danger, we basically, the back brain, which is basically the reptilian brain, that says, oh, I have to protect you. So I'm going to take everything from your prefrontal cortex and everything else in your body that is not essential for you to run or fight your way out of this situation. And I'm going to control that. And so any kind of judgment and all that kind of stuff goes offline while the reptilian brain thinks that it is helping us to be successful. The problem with that is that it puts us into a really bad space. But I wanted you to see through the eyes of children and adults who've gone through trauma, what their experience has been. So if we can go on to clip 3.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll stop sharing.
Okay, let's see. That's not this one.
No, it's the
Oh, I can't see my,
your spreadsheet.
oh, no, there we go. Okay, which one is it? The Through Our Eyes?
Through our eyes. Yeah. And can we put it full screen?
Yes, ma'am.
My mother and my brother were murdered in front of me. He put the gun to my head and he had me beg for my life. I was 10. I just turned 10.
It's hard to come out and say that I was a victim and that I was abused, especially when you're little, because it's like a big secret that's always on your back and that you never know when it's going to come out.
The image of my brother falling on that concrete floor and people stepping and just kicking with shoes on his face, I couldn't get that image out of my head.
Trauma is an overwhelming event. It takes away our safety, it creates a sense of helplessness, and it continues to affect our perception of our reality.
Some of the telltale signs of trauma are quite evident. Many of these symptoms, it's not that we don't see them, it's that we don't put together the entire sort of picture of what trauma is. Inability to sleep or interrupted sleep, inability to focus on what's going on, really not able to attend to learning. Adults need to be aware of children who are exposed to violence and intervene early and stop it.
I don't like the environment that I stay in. People getting killed every day, drug deals, people getting snatched, raped, cut up.
Whether it is a child who witnesses violence or a child who is the victim, you can't be fearful and be able to live your normal life. You have to be able to think clearly, and when you're traumatized, you can't do that.
Violence continues then to affect the child in their perception of their community, of their family. The danger is right around the corner. And the brain gets wired to expect danger.
My dad started actually physically beating me to the point to where I'd go to school covered in bruises. I don't know how many times I've been threatened to be killed by my own dad.
My brother got shot in the head. He ain't make it.
It makes you afraid at times. It makes you feel that, oh my God, you know what? I just lost a friend. I just lost a family member. It just makes you feel that, hey, I could die next. I could be the next one dead.
What trauma does is it triggers what's called the amygdala in the brain, which is our fight, flight, freeze center.
And it truly is a change in the brain and a change in the stress hormones that are flowing through the body.
All our brains have what we call alarm systems. Because the brain now has been wired for danger and it's triggered into this fight-flight, we don't just get over a traumatic event. It continues to impact us.
I started hearing my mom scream in the middle of the night. And it got to the point where he started like beating me and my sisters. I let my anger build up, didn't talk to anybody about it.
When you hold everything aside, it's like a bomb and it's like you're ready to explode and just somebody push that last button.
Most kids who've experienced violence oftentimes have experienced multiple types of violence. In the kids we see, the average number of different types of violent trauma is 4. And so complex trauma then affects multiple areas of the brain because it's ongoing.
Maybe it's gang warfare, maybe it's drug use and abuse in the family, maybe it's domestic violence, maybe it's bullying at school. And if there is a layering effect of cumulative violence, it changes literally the DNA.
It all started off with the hugging game. He would take us into his room. We would sit on his lap and he would hug us, and we weren't supposed to tell anyone.
When I was 5, I would have to leave kindergarten class and go home and have sex with this man who was in his 50s. I remember the long walk home and crying and falling down and having to get back up and walking on.
Child sexual abuse exists in the neighborhood, exists unfortunately at our schools, at our churches, at our homes, everywhere. And there are children out there suffering.
My first assault was in high school. I met a guy at the church and he wanted to be my friend. I thought it'd be great. And instead he assaulted me and I felt very scared.
When you have a child that doesn't get to work through that abuse in an appropriate manner, that abuse doesn't go away. It lives in that child.
Exposure to violence in childhood has been found to be associated with a really unbelievable range of long-term impacts.
Very young children who are exposed to violence many times have difficulty in establishing a trusting relationship. These children have fears.
You're twice as likely to develop depression. You're probably 3 times as likely to develop some type of anxiety disorder.
As they move into school age, they may have very, very serious behavior problems. As we look at adolescence, we see children running away. Sometimes children may be involved in the juvenile justice system, which puts the child at risk for being an adult offender. And so the cost of violence is staggering.
I felt isolated. Nobody knew what I was going through. To go 3 years without talking about it, I imploded.
Finally, after stressing and keeping everything bottled up and everything building up, I just finally broke down one day and attempted suicide.
Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death of children and adolescents in this country. We always ask in every case, what role might child abuse have played?
My mother, she knew that stuff was going on, but it just seemed like she didn't really care. She never stopped that abuse. And to this day, I've never forgotten what some of my family members have done to me.
These are traumatized kids. And so how do we then, as adults, professionals, caregivers, put a system around children that really is trauma-informed?
Happy feeling, good job, okay?
What do we do differently to help rewire their brain? And then ultimately, how do we build capacity in order to really help our kids?
Everybody come together, whether it's in the community, in the home, in the school, wherever children are, and child by child, think of ways in which we can intervene early and educate people about what children need in order to grow, to thrive, and to continue to be resilient human beings.
Great. So what'd you guys think of that one? You can unmute. We're small enough.
Hard to watch.
I know, it's to see the abuse that takes place and then to see how it impacted their lives completely. That's very hard. Not trying to traumatize you guys, okay? I want you to know that. But these are things that make a difference. So let me see if I can get back to the slide. Okay. So you take the adverse childhood experiences. You also take the fact that when a child is growing in certain developmental years, that some of the activities that they get involved in seem to adults who are unknowledgeable to be something that is rebellious and defiant. So in elementary kids, of course, there's absolutes. They see it is or it isn't. The glass is full, the glass is empty. This is mine, this is yours. They don't see, let's try to work together and play fair. They want to move around. They've got all this pent-up energy and people tell them to sit still and listen to the teacher. Well, that's hard, and especially hard for anyone who has ADHD or any other control issues. So you basically sort of compound the problem. The fact that we are now training people on trauma awareness helps at the school level so that they're not looking at it as a defiant. But we also need to make sure that parents, grandparents, and aunts and uncles and everybody else knows that they're not out of character based on their age and what is developmentally appropriate for that age. For middle and high schoolers, they basically have been wired to start looking at taking more risks. And my advice is that as parents, we kind of have to look at, okay, we know they're going to take a risk. Let's try to take a risk that's a healthier risk than one that is not. So working with your child, understanding what they're trying to accomplish, and then also talking to them about some of the challenges that are out on social media and things that are unhealthy. I was just in prepping for Saturday, I was looking, they have all these dangerous teen challenges and they're all out on the web. And if your kid wants to see it, boy, they just pop up. And there's a new one that says it's a threesome. Two kids try to knock a third kid who is jumping up, tries to knock their feet out from under them so that they will fall and knock themselves out. That is not a good challenge. That is not a healthy challenge. But knowing that those sort of things happen and having a discussion with your child beforehand that this one isn't one that we want to take on. Maybe we want to chew, there's one called Chubby Bunny, where you want to fill your mouth with marshmallows and see how many you can get in there. But having someone pretty much take your feet out and you can hit your head and have a traumatic brain problem is not a healthy, risky behavior that we want to engage. Also, remember our hormones. When we were growing up, at this point in time, we thought that, you know, everything felt overly emotional. And so the intensity and the stuff that's out and available on the web and what our kids are dealing with, those emotions are at an all-time high, combined with being stuck in COVID land. That makes it even more intense. And so we've got to, again, try to talk with them and take periodic checks of where they are. They may not be willing to tell you the first or second time that they really have an emotional problem, but they may be willing to share that with you as you, again, instead of focusing on work, focus on them. And I'm not saying that you guys are not, and I'm not bashing parents. I'm a parent. I know how difficult it is to hold down a job and to balance all the things that are important. But I do know that sometimes we have to take a step back and say, okay, if my child isn't talking to me, then I need to take those steps in order for them to talk to me, because they're not going to take those steps. And they need to feel, again, sort of that it's going to be okay and safe to talk. And there won't be feedback coming back like, oh, that was nothing in my day. They, did a lot worse and they called you this and all this kind of stuff. And we just like, you've lost them at that point. Okay. Because they've checked out again. So coping with stress, there's some materials that I send. I think I put them on the spreadsheet, but I will resend a couple of these slides. Social emotional learning. When they talked a little bit about forming the attachments with peers and teachers, it's the same thing as forming attachments with parental figures. So if your parental figure, or if the person who's the next door neighbor who's been doing bad things to you, if is making promises that they cannot keep, and then you in turn start to feel that nothing that anyone tells you is true, then you're going to have difficulties forming healthy attachments with whomever. But the reason that I say this is that sometimes it's going to take a little more time, and you can't give up. You just got to keep on hanging in there and trying to talk with them and being a part of their lives. Okay, I'm not going to cover all of these. In the video, if you'll recall, the young man, he said he imploded. And that's one of two things that happens when people suffer trauma. You can either internalize it and just completely space out, disengage, and then, or you can externalize it and become very aggressive and impulsive. And I've seen both. It's not healthy either way. It really isn't. So that's another reason why we have to, again, when somebody externalizes and gets all defiant and aggressive, rather than assume that they are the problem, think ACEs. If you can do that, then that might put your mindset in a different place as well. And if they're all withdrawn and kind of quiet and everyone says, oh, well, they're shy and all this sort of stuff, that you need to check that out too, because that's not totally true. This is a exercise that happens in one of the training classes, and I put it on here for you to see, because think of a child coming into the classroom or, just hanging out, and they've been traumatized and they've got all this stuff going on. So sometimes they're angry, they can't concentrate. Again, they mentioned sleep problems. They're depressed. They don't trust people. And then someone comes in and says, I'm going to be the savior. I'm going to be the one to take care of you. That's not going to go over initially well, because they've been told that multiple times. And what you have to do is to eke out little bits and small victories, as opposed to trying to come in and take over everything that's going on with them. Okay. Now this one, the only reason I put this up here is the center section. The comfort, we all need to be able to be emotionally regulated. If we can do that, then that hyper arousal, the fight or flight, gets under control. The hypo arousal, oh, I just got to freeze and do nothing. Our comfort zone, emotional regulation skill set is important for everyone. And trying to work on mindfulness, trying to work on self-care, trying to work on regulating your breathing and those sorts of things allows one to deal with situations. When you talk about the officers de-escalating, that's one way of de-escalating situations. That's a way to have someone who seems to be totally out of control to come back into control. And to learn those skills and to practice them, not just to learn them, but to practice them is really, really important. I know over the last year and a half, I have learned those skills, and my partner that I do a self-care program with, we've been able to practice, of course, for the kids and the parents and all that kind of stuff. But I've implemented that as part of my life. And I'm telling you, it's pretty amazing. My blood pressure has gone down. I know how to calm myself down, to breathe right, so that if I'm taking my blood pressure, the first one is like, nah, but it's a whole lot less than it used to be. I can tell you that much. But then if it is high, then I'm like, okay, do your breathing, Lynn, bring it down. And it's almost like a miracle. It's like, wow, there really is something to this stuff. Another thing is helping our kids and every human being that we know name the emotion that they are feeling. And I love the Inside Out movie because, you know, they had the basic ones, but what I want you to do is to take something like a feelings wheel and work with people to really start to understand, okay, what is really going on? So you feel sad. A lot of times people say, yeah, I'm sad. Well, what happened? Oh, you're sad because you're unhappy? You're sad because you lost someone? Are you sad because you got some sort of pain? Or are you depressed? So it doesn't take a lot to kind of ask questions so that people can think through on their own. Oh, okay. I don't want to just be sad all the time and not know why, because I can't help myself if I don't know the reason I'm sad. And so that's an interesting, and I've used this a lot too with kids and families, and it makes a big difference. So how does it affect learning? Obviously, it's difficult if you are still in that reliving that traumatic state for you to plan and manage your time properly, to organize skills, to remember things. Whoa, that's a big one. It's like I'm over here with the tape going on and you're over here talking to me, but I have not gotten out of here. So you're telling me that I should take the garbage out and do my homework. I'm not sure I hear take the garbage out or do my homework. Or if I do hear one, I don't hear the other. So just think of it from that side of the house. Receptive language, the ability to understand language. Again, we're all kind of in this jumbo trauma, So how am I going to respond to the language of other people, and how am I going to really follow those directions and identify the things that they say they want me to do? And it's not just verbally. One of the things that people who are traumatized, they don't do well with reading nonverbal clues, because again, they're looking at, okay, are they going to come at me? Is there some danger that I need to be aware of? Or, you know, so something subtle like a wink or something else could mean something totally different to them than it does to you and I. A wink to us could be, you know, hey, we're simpatico, we're ready. And a wink to them would be like, let's go in the room. And that's not the same. So this is just, again, some of the things that happen in terms of when people are under stress. Sometimes they become more accident prone. Sometimes it's the depression and the anxiety increases. I just threw in a few things about suicide in this context. So why should we care about anxiety and depression in kids? Because we've seen already that, you know, the ACEs and everything else pile up in the long term in terms of what's going on with them. I think it said somewhere that this was the third, I think in the video clip, suicide was the third largest killer of teens. It is now the second, according to the CDC. So there are a bunch of risk factors for doing that. Obviously, if there's a history of suicide, feelings of hopelessness. So these are all things that you guys know. It's just trying to get to them prior to them taking the wrong action. This was back in 2011. What I did was I went to my captain in Livermore and I said, could you give me some stats on the 5150s within Livermore? And unfortunately, we did not separate them. They didn't have like a little checkbox to say juveniles versus adults. So they've learned that they should do that. And hopefully the next time that information can be shared. But I just wanted to kind of share with you kind of where things were or are in 2021. Now, obviously, a lot of times people don't state it as a 5150, or they choose to take their loved one in on their own rather than the police be involved and that sort of stuff. But it just gives you an idea of where we are. Any questions so far? I don't want to just keep.
Does this number also include crisis calls, mobile crisis calls?
No, I don't think so. I think it's if they actually, I'll have to get verification, but I think they probably called them saying that the individual needed to be 5150'd. And then they either agreed or disagreed.
Actually, it might be when they actually sent an officer out. I think a year or so ago when I contacted Livermore PD for similar statistics, they told me that it was incidents where they sent an officer out to follow up on it.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd also like to add that several years ago, I too was able to get the 5150 number from the Livermore Police Department, which I was very grateful for. And I took it to Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Services, and they said, oh, we only have I mean, these are the numbers that were very much like 443, 433, and said, oh, we have 60. Right, that's not possible. How can you, it's drastically different. And so I went back to the Livermore police and they said, well, we just look at transport. So we transport someone to John George, for example. We don't know if they're staying there. We don't even know if it's the same person being 5150'd over and over. So I never felt I had a real number on this until this. But I really can't thank you enough. This is very important information just for us to understand who's, who's being eligible to be 5150, be taken to, to get care or at least assessed. So, yeah, thanks.
No problem.
Can I have a question? Please, I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask this question. It may fit in here. Are any of these, in as much as you're working with the police department as part of the Horizons, managing the Horizons program, do you attend some of these, or do you go out to some of these calls, or does someone from Horizon go when there's a mental illness kind of call to accompany the officers?
No, but we are looking into that as part of a program that the chief wants to add. So we would have to actually hire a staff person who would do that, because you need a different, unique skill set for the, right there in your face, immediate response than we have in our clinic, where people come to us and we talk about things that aren't as, shall we say,
emergent.
Yeah, it's not an emergency, but the key thing is that we are looking at it. We are trying to put together, I think our clinical director is putting together a rec. The chief has talked to Mark Roberts, the city manager, and I believe in the last city council meeting that they had, they talked about that as something that was needed. And there is a list of activities or projects for equity and inclusion purposes that the city had separate task forces and subcommittees. And that was one of the ones that was the recommendation for the police department. And that was accepted. Now, what accepted mean, in terms of, are they going to be there next week? No, but the potential of actually doing the hiring and getting somebody on board is pretty high.
So you're aware of the Representative Selwell's bill or monies that have come through that the Pleasant Police Department and Access are going to try to work together to do that kind of thing in Pleasanton? You're aware of that?
Actually,
yes. So is it something like that?
Yeah, our clinical manager was actually on a subcommittee that the chief at Pleasanton put together.
Great. Okay.
So,
good to have the coordination or know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll try to integrate as much good stuff that they came up with as possible. And, the other challenge is if you need 24-hour coverage, then you're going to have more than one body, right? And so we've got to figure that out. But it might be one of those things that every year we increase and just kind of go from there. Thank you, Art.
Good. Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, so there's a bunch of factors that contribute to suicide. It's not just a mental health condition, but I wanted to put our fourth and almost final presentation on. This is the video, I'm fine, because teens are going to tell you that they're fine all the time. They're going to, blow everything off, but they're going to be miserable. And you have to know that, and young adults for that matter. They don't want to burden anybody. So let me stop my sharing. This one's pretty short.
This is not it. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I feel fat. I'm stressed. I feel ugly. I'm not hungry anymore. I'm so tired all the time. I'm just having a really hard time. And I don't know what to do anymore.
So we all know that kids are not getting the help that they need. Part of it is that they want to blow it off as if it's not something that's really a problem. And part of it is, unfortunately, some parents don't want to deal with it either. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with families and they, say, well, I don't want people getting in my business. So it's kind of like, oh my God, you really have got to move forward on this. I don't know why this is not. I'm sorry. So let's talk really quickly about compassion fatigue, and I think my resilience slides will come up. So compassion fatigue is when people who have been trying to help people get to a point where they are pretty much spent, and the emotional pain of dealing with other people's emotional pain basically erodes their ability to refuel, get energized, to regenerate. And it can, in fact, impact organizations, it can impact systems, and it can impact the person and the family of that person. So that has to be something that is kept in consideration. So resilience, yay, we're almost done. The key thing about resilience is that it helps us overcome trauma and all the bad things. You've seen people who've gone through horrendous kinds of physical and emotional and sexual pain and that sort of stuff, and they've come back out on top. So I'm going to end this with a positive note. It is already factory loaded in us. We can have hope. We can have the possibility of a new future. and there are thriving survival strategies for coping. So I'm going to, so there's a few of them, obviously trying to get the person in with mental health care services and the things that are going to be important for them. Their clinical interventions that they can work and practice, family and community support. All the videos, all the ACEs, everybody says this is a community problem and we have to work it from that perspective. Cultural, religious beliefs, whatever makes one feel that they are special and that there is a higher power or that there is something that they are meant to do on this planet. Those are all factors. Let's see here. Now, this one is, there's lots of ways that you can build a person's resilience. You can focus on spirituality, you can focus on nature, animals. I like this in a much more graphic perspective. So this is my favorite of using those same words, but putting it into context that, with relationships, imagining things, helping other people. Those are all things that make people feel better about what they themselves are going through and want to do for others. There are, and I put this on the spreadsheet as a list of articles. So there's some articles that you guys can look at, and this was 80 self-care activities for teens. It's kind of interesting. I was working with Del Val and their principal, and they sort of put this stuff, not all 80, but they started a bingo program. So they have a bingo board and they take some of these activities and they pass them out to their students. And if they've done them and they come back and they can verify that they've done them, then they can get a prize. Pretty cool. It's just a different way to kind of get you motivated to do something to get out of the doldrums. I like it. So what can be done? I saw this last video and I'm going to launch it. Hopefully it will launch in my on this page. Let's see. Come on. Are you going to do the right thing? Of course not. It worked before.
Is this the lag?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a lag or you. I can send it to you guys on that list, and you can look at it for yourself. The reason that I thought it was really great is that most people know Oprah and know that she was sexually abused as a child. She went through lots of challenges and she was able to overcome those. And one of the things that she said throughout this video clip, it was people. It was a couple of teachers that found a special interest in her and said that she could be somebody special, that fanned the flames of her being able to overcome. Now, she still went through therapy and everything else, and I'm sure she's probably still going through therapy. But the fact that it can be overcome, whatever has happened to us does not define us. It is just an event or series of events that happened to us. Now we have to work forward to do different. So healing in the brain, resilience is hardwired in us. Relationships mitigate the effects of trauma. You don't have to spend money. You just have to spend some time and show an interest. That's the cool thing about this. You really, that's where everything meets. It has been proven that people who have good relationships live longer, they're healthier, and they, I guess you could say, contribute more to society and the community. So with that, the resource list, that's the one that I sent you guys on the spreadsheet, so you can certainly pass that out to your members and send that to them. Just want, if there's any questions, I can take those now. So what can NAMI Tri-Valley do to help? Well, I think one important thing is try to get more people to understand ACEs, and even just playing the little video clip or putting that on your website would be probably helpful, so that they could understand what all this stuff does. I think when you're talking, to try to help people remember that if someone seems to be acting out of like total control, there may be other stuff in there that has to be sort of weeded out or fleshed out. And then to try to provide the support to the family members that are dealing with someone who has these kinds of issues. I'd hate to be a grandparent these days that has a child that they're taking care of because their own child is unable to, and yet they don't know these kinds of things, because they're only going to be able to deal with what they know. And so if they're not aware, they're gonna say some things that are not going to be pleasant and are going to re-injure that child. And that's a problem. That's something that we all can work on to say, no, we're not going to accept this kind of behavior. So parent education is important, or parent/caregiver education is really important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, I made my time.
You did beautifully. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to ask Lynn?
Lynn?
Yes.
I do have a question in regards to you had mentioned that you were going to be your material, excuse me, my throat's getting dry. How are we able to get that information that you showed on your screen? Excuse me.
Are you talking about the presentation, or are you talking about the resources?
The part of the presentation where you had the bingo game and you had all of those things, I would like to have a copy of that to share with some teachers I know. I think that might be fine. I mean,
no problem. Like what I will do is I will update the spreadsheet that the spreadsheet that I sent to you. I'll update that spreadsheet, because if there were the video clips at the beginning, and then I started putting articles.
You just send it to me. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but I'll update it and resend it to you, so
that's great. Yeah. Okay, I'll share that. Thank you.
And unfortunately, there is so much out that it is hard to kind of make it palatable so that people don't start sleeping and that sort of stuff. But all you have to do is do a Google search and you'll find all kinds of stuff, like even the feelings wheels. And I will attach a copy of the feelings wheel. But the feelings wheel, you can just Google feelings wheel and all kind of graphics. They have some that look like slices of pizza. They have some that are much more in-depth and that sort of stuff. So you can do a little bit of research on, let your fingers do the walking, but I will send you the ones that I've done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Yes.
Lynn, with respect to the Horizons program, how is it that you get referrals? Whom is it that is usually referring to you, or how can someone get a referral to you?
So we get referrals from anybody in the community. Anybody in the Tri-Valley can basically come to us and they can use our services free for the first 5 sessions if they're a minor family. So we have a grant with Alameda County Probation that allows us to provide up to 5 services free of charge. Then after that, it would be on a sliding scale based on their income and that sort of stuff. But we get referrals from the schools, we get referrals from community members, from people who've used our services before and, you know, their friend now needs some help with their kid. We get referrals from people that attend different presentations that I do, and then they want to basically call and try to get into for services and that sort of stuff. Sometimes we have a slight waiting list, sometimes we don't. So I'll just put that caveat out there. And with the schools, we are trying to actually be on school campuses for Grenada and Livermore. And then I usually try to do some presentations that will cover in the middle schools.
So how many clinicians do you have?
We have, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4 clinicians plus a clinical director who sees clients, basically. But we have alternate schedules. So there's always somebody in the office, but usually there's 2 or 3 people in the office at any given time.
The people that are working at the high schools would be on the school site?
Yes,
certain times?
that's hopefully the plan, but you know, with COVID and the Delta variant, they want us on site, but I'm not sure what's going to happen if things don't improve and the numbers come down.
Go back to Zoom, huh?
Yeah, we'll be back to telehealth. We do a lot of telehealth. Some of our clients have said that they want to continue in telehealth, and some want to come back to the clinic. And we're actually at the back of the police department, across from City Hall. So if you walk, instead of by the library, if you walk between City Hall and the police department, we have a little walkway, and then we're at the back with our own entrance.
Thank you for your presentation. They're very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I echo Art's thank you. We're so grateful to you being here, and I miss you.
I miss you too. You and Rosemary.
It's just not the same. I'd like to mention that you'll be doing your Saturday presentation, and if the titles change a little, just send me a text or something.
No, social media,
Oh,
screen time, and mental health of teens and children.
Yeah. And a couple of other things that I just want to mention to everyone, aside from our wonderful speaker tonight. Those of you who live in Livermore, Dublin, Pleasanton, just if you're not aware, there's the Access Bridge Urgent Mental Health Clinic. I think I got that right. So it is an effort from the cities of Livermore, Dublin, Pleasanton, and Access Community Health and Behavioral Health Care Services that has assisted with funding to start a 1-year pilot program where if someone is in distress or a mental health crisis, that they can access the ACCE, they can utilize the services in our immediate area for bridging from crisis until you get plugged into where you need to be according to your insurance and things like that. But it's
Marcia,
free.
can you give a
I'm sorry, I'm
contact for
wrong,
that?
not insurance, huh?
Could you give a contact for that? Is there a number or a contact person? Or just you or?
Oh, for on the I would have to, boy, I don't have a way of keeping the list of those who are here tonight, unfortunately. But I can look, it's on the website for, actually, hang on, I bet I can. In 1 second here. Let's see. Let's see. This is exactly, here we go. I will put a okay. I'll just do a copy of the link. You want to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. The other thing is I wanted to mention that the Bay Area Community Services Valley Wellness Center is open. Again, I don't know if the the COVID Delta variant is going to keep it open, but as of I guess a couple of days ago, they are open for walk-ins. And if you do not know about the wellness center, I would say please contact me and I will send you that information, because a matter of time, it will take me a little while to find their website, but it's Bay Area Community Services, and it's for people with a diagnosis or not, but people who can come in and participate in different programs or just be there and hang out. It's for ages 18 and over, and it's free. And say they're open after being closed for about a year. So if you want any more information, then just please contact me and I'll do what I can to guide
Yeah,
you.
they actually sent out a calendar today. I haven't looked at it.
I'm not, must be on their naughty list. I didn't get
Yeah.
one. Can you forward that to me?
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
make sure. Thank you.
Mhm.
Great. Okay.
Is Lynn still on or not?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I had a question.
Sure.
Can some of the information and strategies and so forth in dealing with trauma with teens, is that also useful for adults with unresolved trauma issues?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
It's pretty much universal. It's just how you do it, how you get a teenager to do it versus an adult to do it, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Adults might listen while a teen might blow it off, and then you have to motivate them with some other ways.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Are there any other questions? Okay. Lynn, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you guys for hanging in there. Appreciate it.
And if there's anything you need that you think we can be of any help, just let me know.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah,
I will.
that's keep us in mind. Okay.
Absolutely.
All
And
right.
I will see you guys on Saturday, whoever.
You on Saturday.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys, take care.
Much. Bye-bye.
Bye.